Hello, Fish here again. Welcome to another weapons training walkthrough video. In this video we don't have a stock mission for man-in-the-loop weapons, so I've just made a custom TE and we're going to use that. And we're going to choose the strike package, which is heading off there at 5:31, so we've plenty of time. And you can see where our target area is steer point 4. We're going to just do a quick recon of the target area to see what it is we can attack. I haven't assigned targets. Well, I have assigned one target, but we're not going to use that target. The idea is not to assign targets, but use the man-in-the-loop weapon, which is capable of being steered onto a particular target dynamically at the time of launch and the time of deployment. So we don't need to have targets lined up, but however we do need to know what it is we're heading towards and what we expect to see when we get there. So that's why I'm doing some basic reconnaissance on the target site. So we're heading from the south, and this is what we're going to see when we get up there. A rough layout of the airfield, and I see a couple of targets of opportunity there that we may decide to look at, and that's our tower here, which is between our main taxiway and the main runway, or the parking area and the main runway. And behind that, to the east of it, we have a very large building, which is some kind of a command building. So we're going to target those two elements when we get to the runway, and we're going to use the sensors to hone in on them and attack them from there. Let's look very quickly at our weapons loadout for this mission. And we see we're carrying 2 of the GBU15s, and if we zoom in close to the GBU15s, you'll see both of them have a camera in the nose, and it's this camera that is going to be pointing and sensing the target. And what we've also got is we've got the pod on board, which is the let's look at the should be somewhere down here, which is the AN-AQX14, and this is the pod which allows us to communicate or receive a signal from the bombs as they're falling. So there's quite a small limited angle off between the jet and the weapon in order to make this thing work, and we'll talk about that more when we get into the pit. But safe to say that you can see that these 2 weapons plus 2 fuel tanks, two 370-gallon tanks, make our jet quite heavy. And one of the challenges is when we release one of these bombs, because they generally release them one at a time, because you can only control one at a time. We release one at a time, and it leads to quite a bit of imbalance in the jet, and handling those or managing the jet while we're trying to focus on the target can be certainly be fun. So with that in mind, we can see we've got 20 miles from steer point 3, so that should give us enough time to set up. And I'm going to commit to the pit now, and I'll see you in a moment. Okay, hello and welcome into the pit now. Just going to reduce our intercom down. First thing we need to do is, as usual, because we haven't ramped, is to switch on our weapons, and we're pretty much ready to take off. Just going to adjust our altimeter, and we're good to go. So I'm going to give it 100%. We're going to conserve fuel on this, and we're carrying a 42,000 pound load, so we're going to need to run up to about 190 and rotate very gently. Going to use most of the runway here for this. I always say it's better to conserve fuel though once you're not running late on the carrot. Configure our aircraft when we're airborne. I'm going to push the steer point 3. Not going to waste time. There we go, rotate. Not going to waste time going to steer point 2. Okay, let's give it a second to get a little bit of momentum. Okay, we're going to pull up the gear. And now we're going to start our roll. So gentle roll, 30 degree. And we're going to pull up to 5 degrees nose up gradually, and a bank angle of 30 degrees. So just keep an eye on your AOA indexer there. We don't want to stall it yet. It is gradually coming up in speed. I can see we're up to 237 knots. There's no rush with this. And it is good practice to be well in control with an aircraft which is laden as heavy as this is. Okay, so now we're heading towards our push point. Going nose up to 7.5 degrees. And autopilot on. Probably a little bit more than 7.5 degrees, but actually going to take that down a little bit more. And let us get up a bit of speed. Okay, that's a bit better. So while we're heading towards steer point number 3, just talk about the symbology here. You can see in the HSD there's more extra symbology here, and we have this cake slice with the yellow boundary. That's essentially where the sensors for the man-in-the-loop weapon are going to be looking. So once the bomb is within that sensor area, we should be able to pick it up and display its image on the weapons page on the left MFCD here. We can change the mode of this, and just let me go into air to ground mode. Choose the weapon page, and using OSB2 we can change from being forward to aft, and you can see with aft it's kind of two donut shapes, and this is actually easier to maintain the bomb in here. Once we drop the bomb, we take an offset of maybe 30 or 40 degrees right or left, and then the bomb can remain in that area. If we have the forward mode switched on, the problem is that the jet generally will continue to move faster while the bomb is slowed down and will fall behind, so we won't get any signal. If we look at the HUD symbology in air to ground mode with this weapon employed, we can see we have a whiz as we have on other weapons, and although we can't see it here, we will have a countdown caret, and once that caret is within the whiz, we can deploy the bombs. Now I generally wait until it's got a reasonable amount into it. The other thing that helps it is to be travelling at a reasonable speed, so maybe Mach 8 or more would be good if you can afford to do that. We're continuing to climb. We're at 10,000 angels at the moment, and we're going to level out at 15,000. The other options here on the screen, I'll just go through them. OSB3 there is for two modes. There's narrow or wide field of view. The channels selection there apparently are used to enable you to control two bombs at once. I find it difficult enough to control one, so I haven't really got round to trying that mode out. OSB 8 there is important because that's the one you switch on when one of the bombs has done its job. You switch that, and that switches the target back to the next bomb. There's our wingman up with us now. The other one we want to be concerned about is OSB 19, because that's the fuse arming, and we have to arm that fuse once the bomb is released. Generally it's good practice to arm it once you are fairly confident where the bomb is going. OSB 18 here is important, and we change this. It's 3 modes. We change it using TMS up. The first mode is strapped to the aircraft, and in that mode we are just looking at what the bomb sees from the aircraft sensor, from the nose of the weapon. When it's released, we also see it from the nose of the bomb. However, we can only see it when we change the mode. And we change the mode up. Sorry, that's wrong. We can actually see it when we change the mode. We can change the mode up, and that controls whether the jet moves left or right. I generally do TMS up twice to give it full control of the bomb and concentrate on getting it onto the target area. So we're coming up close to steer point 3, and we're going to move on to steer point 4, which is our target steer point. And it'll all happen very quickly once we turn on to steer point 4. The biggest challenge is controlling the aircraft when the inertia changes so much because we've dropped one of these bombs. And I've yet to try it out, but maybe that's a good reason to use separate channels and deploy the two bombs together. So we can see the carrot now. We're not going to use it here because we're only focused on steer point 3. The carrot runs down, and the carrot and this weapons envelope here is relative to the current steer point that we've got. So it's important that you've got a current steer point in and around the area where you're going to drop the bomb. Otherwise, this symbology is not going to tell you that the bomb is actually capable of reaching the target. And a good way of doing it is to focus in on the target. Now we're going to change the FCR there, and what you can do is you can make a target and make it the current steer point by using the FCR, if you wish, in and around where you know, using the FCR and the ground radar and your knowledge of the target area. However, we know that steer point 4 is right bang on the airport, the airbase that we're attacking, so we should be good here. Okay, we're moving over to steer point 4. And we're gone a little bit too high in altitude, so I'm going to level out. 15,000 is good enough. Okay, pushing on to steer point 4. I'm also going to push up our throttle a bit. Now it's time to use a little bit of our juice, and I've no problem doing that. I'm also going to go fence in, switching on our master arm so we can see our image now. And once we've got the SOI on the weapons page, we can see our cursor, and this is the cursor from the nose of the bomb. This points the camera basically, and so we know our target area is somewhere down there. And I'm going to just continue it on down until we see the bomb, we see the target area. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in here, and we can see, actually we can see two aircraft on the deck there. 3 aircraft on the deck. Actually, that might be a good target of opportunity if we can take them out. So let's focus on trying to do that. Okay, our cursor is coming into our whiz, so we're a little bit premature for this, but we're slow on speed. So I'm going to push up a bit more. And remember, the speed will bring that whiz down more quickly. Or it'll bring the cursor, sorry, the carrot down more quickly. So now we're good. I'm going to release that weapon now. I'm going to take out of autopilot and release. I'm going to let the aircraft roll a little bit. I'm going to turn away. You can see we've lost it there. Oh, that's okay. I'm going to level out here. And now I'm going to TMS up. Recenter the bomb and TMS up again. And now I'm going to try lock on that area. And now we've locked on that target. So that's a good lock. So if I can hold our jet steady here. And recenter that target. And now not to forget to switch our fusing on. Yeah, that might be a good weapon. Yep, that's going to be good. Boom. So, let's have a quick look. Back around. I haven't adjusted my trim on the aircraft because we're going to be dropping our second bomb. Okay, I'm going to do that bombing run again in a little more detail. I'm going to use the pause so we can focus in a bit more on what's happening. So just going to pause there and we're going to have a look at the Symbology on the screen here on the MFD. And you can see the current mode is strapped, so that indicates that the bomb is strapped to the nose of the jet. Now in that mode, all we're doing is we're using the cursor, we're moving around. Once we've got SOI there on the left side, we're moving around where the camera is pointing. So we know our position is somewhere below there for our airfield that we're going to attack. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm dropping that down the bomb fall line, and if I go far enough down below the hood, I should actually see the image in the MFCD. Okay, so that's the first thing I need to do. I need to make sure that the weapon is pointing at the target area. And now we can see our weapons release cue there. Tells us that we're in a good place to be able to release our weapon. So I'm going to do that pretty quickly. First of all, I'm going to switch out of autopilot mode so we can manage our jet a bit easier. And then I'm going to unpause and release the weapon. And if we watch OSB 18, we'll see the mode is going to change now to the loft mode, which tells us that the bomb is in the air. I'm going to let the jet roll a little bit, and I'm going to move the cursor to bring us back roughly on the target area. So we're going to roll the jet out and hold it steady, and now I'm going to pause again. And we can see now we're in loft mode. We can still move the cursor around. This is not having any impact on the way that the bomb is flying. The bomb continues to fly and use as little energy as possible in the directions that it was continuing to go. Now what we need to do is we need to change the mode using TMS up, and I'm going to change from loft mode into transition mode. Now the documentation says transmission mode, but I think it's more appropriate to call it transition mode, because we're transitioning from it being just dumbly flying to being in control, which is the last mode. Let's turn that down so it doesn't bother us so much. Okay, so I'm going to unpause now, and I'm going to TMS up in order to get us into the next mode, which is the transition mode. And then we're going to look at the MFD, and then I'm going to move the cursor again to get the camera pointing in the right direction, and then we're going to go into the final mode, which is the terminal mode. So on pause, TMS up, move the camera back in, and we can see there we're now in transition mode, as I call it. And in this mode we can still move the cursor, but at this stage the cursors can actually impact the direction that the bomb is heading, only in the azimuth direction. So we can start to move the bomb left or right. Now in this case we can see with our SAQ there that we're actually in the correct vertical position for the bomb. So all we're doing is, you can see the cursor here tells us that the bomb is kind of pointing out further away than the camera is looking. So the camera is looking slightly down in this case. So as soon as we go from transition mode into terminal mode, now we get full control over the bomb, and everything we do with the cursor, the bomb will follow to that location. So what we need to do after we're in terminal mode is we need to fix our crosshairs somewhere on the ground where we want the bomb to go, and TMS up again, and that ground stabilizes that. And we'll see that. I'm going to do that all together in one go. So TMS up, terminal mode, move it to the location I want, zoom in there. You can see there's a plane coming out there, so we'll do this one. TMS up, and I can use the cursor to adjust it ever so slightly, and you can see now we're on the target. So we've got one aircraft is actually moved out, but we should be good for the, you can see we're in terminal mode here, and the box around the crosshairs indicate that we're locked onto that location. Now we've got to switch on our fusing, don't forget that at the very end, and now we should be able to have a quick look down at what's happening. And we see the fireworks there. And we have smoke anyway, which is good. Now we need to switch over to our second bomb and make a sensor of interest, pull our cursor down and get a view on where we want to release our second bomb. And I'm going to I'm going to release it somewhere in the same area. So let's bomb release. Now we have a bit better control over the aircraft at least. Okay, we're going to go for the tower this time. TMS up, and lock on the tower. Move it, lock again, and fuse it. And we're going to come off to target to the left. Now we can watch the spectacle from here. Okay, there's a hole in the ground there and I don't see any aircraft, so that looked like like a good hit. Okay, our weapon is still on the way in. Still got a good view of it there. Just readjust it slightly there. Yeah, we're getting close. Close. Now let's have a quick look out here. Boom. There we go. So with that in mind, let's head back. We're now Winchester.
Request permission to engage.
Let our wingman do what he wants to do. Okay, it's not a trivial matter to use these weapons, and I find that they are by far the most cumbersome weapon to use. However, there are some reasons and times that you will use them effectively. I will do a bit of work maybe and look at the channel option, which allows two bombs to be deployed almost simultaneously, because the biggest challenge is trying to keep your jet balanced so that you've got a view on the target in the MFD, and so you can control it from them. The other challenge is the two initial modes of deployment are probably of little value, and what I found is you need to get them very quickly into the full control mode. So I hope you found this interesting, and certainly give it a try. This weapon is not for the faint-hearted, and it requires a lot of practice even to get it right at first. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and as usual, feel free to leave any comments, and until the next time, bye bye.
Sky 13, taxi, runway 20.